Pleasure being here.
Shall I say that I am relieved to see that you were able to make it this morning, but I do not know what was on your mind, knowing that this protest was going to happen today, and we do know that when protests like this are happening, people tend to be cautious around, yes, on their way to work or around even their businesses. So what was it like for you making it down here?
Well, as a man of faith, I've always believed that God will make a way, even where there is no way.
Okay.
And Nigerians every day are subjected to a whole lot of miseries, hardship, and sufferings. Whenever you're going out to do anything on behalf of Nigerians, you have to take yourself as an ordinary Nigerian. And you have to subject yourself to the risk that every other person is taking. Nothing is going to stop me from doing what I've made up my mind to do.
Well, I'm glad that you're here.
It is the grace of God.
What do you
and the
make?
Determination to keep moving no matter the circumstance.
What do you make of this protest, though? The Free Nnamdi Kalu protest. There are those who are saying, look, it is legitimate. They're well within their rights to protest. It is enshrined in the Constitution. And there are those who are saying this protest is premature. The matter is still in court. There's progress being made on the matter in court. It seemed at some point that, yes, there was a lull, especially after he was brought back from Kenya. But then there are those who are saying it seems that new vigor has been given the case. Just last week, we heard from the Nigerian Medical Association that he is fit to stand trial. And it does appear that the justice system is now determined to take its course. What are your thoughts on the protests which seem to want to ground the Federal Capital Territory today?
Well, first and foremost, the Constitution is very clear. Section 36, subsection 5, that every Nigerian citizen is deemed to be innocent until proved guilty. A nation that detains a human being more than 7 years, and you have him in your custody, and yet he couldn't even reach a judgment as to the culpability of his crime, is a nation that is failing in the dispensation of justice. Justice delayed is justice denied. When it comes to the issue of crime, the Constitution is very clear that the accused or defendant should be judged within a reasonable time. It is very unreasonable to keep a man in detention for almost 7 years. What are you judging? This is telling on the judicial process of Nigeria. I tell you again, in the Constitution, they say the Attorney General, while making any decision as to charging anybody, discontinuing or taking over any criminal charge, should have regard for public interest, the interest of justice, and the need not to abuse the legal process. For me, in the case of Nnamdi Kalu, the legal processes have been abused. Nobody will remain sane to be in jail for more than 7 years that a case is being tried. People are frustrated. People believe that if you do not find anything against this man, release him or reach a political solution. That is what is bringing all these things. It's a result of frustration that there is no interest of justice served in this. So, diligent prosecution is one of the pillars of justice in a criminal offense. I do not see that diligence. And the federal government is spending on all fronts. Remember, we have pleaded that this should be treated as a political issue and settled out politically so that every party will go home in peace. And then you are the one who arrested him. You are the one who put him on trial. You are the one who is delaying for up to 7 years without giving clear justice. So the federal government is failing on all rounds. And as they keep failing, they are making their matters worse.
So do you think that this is really, you've said this is a political issue.
It should be a political issue.
It should be.
Yes.
But is it?
That's what I'm saying. The government should treat it as a political issue. Remember, during the colonial masters, where people were fighting for our independence, the colonial masters saw them also as adversaries. But they were genuine fighters of freedom. So in this world, there will always be two aspects of an issue. You know, the kind of cost-benefit issue, if it is in business. What is a cost to somebody is a benefit to another. That is how you treat political issues. To some people, he's fighting and agitating for their rights and freedom. You should also take that into consideration. To you, you may say he may have infringed on some laws. Why doing that? You should take that into consideration. And if you're a wise government, you will come to a negotiation table and let each side make a shift and come to a compromise and settle this issue politically.
The issue which he agitates for, which IPOB has agitated for years, is something that countries generally find very difficult to deal with, which is the issue of self-determination. How do you think that can be resolved, given the fact that even if the federal government were to say, look, politically, we release him today, that certainly will not stop the agitations for people who believe that it should be given a separate country of their own?
Very good. And that is why you should not attribute it to him, that he is the originator and the perpetrator of this. I think it predates him and might even outlive him. So it is about the government learning how to treat agitators and how to dialogue with them. Because as you have aptly stated it, it didn't start with him. We've had MASOP, we've had other organizations. It may certainly not end with him. So it's about people expressing in their different ways their manners of frustration with the system. When things were so good in Nigeria, I wasn't hearing all these agitations. But whatever name you call them, it is frustration to the suffering, to the hunger and hardship in the country. That is the truth.
I was going to ask you, though, what side are you on? Are you on the side of the protesters? Do you support their cause, or do you think that since this matter is already in court, pressure should be applied to the federal government to let this matter run as quickly as possible?
Very good. I am on the side of rule of law. I just told you that Nigerians have the right to protest. Section 40. And you can't take it away from them. It's their natural right, innate in them. And the Supreme Court has said, beyond exercising these rights, no human being can live a civilized life. So it is their innate natural right to protest. And it should be encouraged in a democracy. Because when you bottle up all these things, then there will be an implosion and explosion. But when people are allowed to express themselves, according to Section 39, they will ease off their anger, they will feel they've been heard, and then the government will also use it to understand the feeling of the people and know the solution therefore and thereat. So the issue is that it is a support to rule of law. What does rule of law say? Somebody is innocent until you prove him guilty. And you must prove him guilty within a reasonable time. When it's unreasonable, it's no longer a rule of law. And for me, keeping somebody for 7 years in the name of trial is unreasonable. So whatever it is, it should end now. Nnamdi Kalu should be released. Either the justice system moves at the speed it ought to move in our laws. Criminal trial ought to be held every day until judgment. That is what the law says. So I am on the side of law. I'm on the side of justice. Whether there's marginalization against the Southeast, that is given. So whether people will agitate, that is legal. Their method of agitation should also be legal. And if the government believes somebody has exceeded, then when you're applying the law, apply it legally, judiciously, and judicially. And in the case of Nnamdi Kalu, with respect, I can say they have not lived up to it.
Today is also the 5th anniversary of the NSAS protest. That was one protest that we saw a lot of young people come out to express their displeasure with the way the Nigeria police, or will I say an arm of the Nigeria police, had treated a number of young people over the years, indiscriminate detention. And after a while, the protest morphed into something else and morphed into a general protest of complaint against the state in general and the state of affairs. Sadly, that protest did not end well. I mean, in terms of the conflict that degenerated between federal government forces and the protesters. And that had implications for a lot of people, had implications for businesses. I mean, we saw what happened afterwards, the aftermath of the protests where businesses were, destroyed and all of that. So on days like this, when, this sort of protests are declared, people usually are very cautious. Businesses are wary. How do we balance this need for protest, which is a legitimate right, and the fears? Because the protesters, yes, they're protesting a certain cause, and I'm sure a lot of people share their cause for justice, but they also fear that it might not end well. At the end of the day, it affects whatever little that they have been able to build within the system. On a sister program this morning, we saw, the complainants come to talk about how the government of the day has pulled down the little business that they have been able to build. That is a demolition, is something different. But when protests now generate to something that actually affects lives and livelihoods, how do we call that balance?
This is where the efficiency from the state comes into view. Abroad, it is the duty of the security agencies to maintain law and order. And that includes protecting the protesters and ensuring that they are doing their protest in accordance with the law. There's nothing wrong with the police guiding the protesters on the ways they should protest to make sure that it remains peaceful. If you recall, just like you have enunciated the issue of the NSAS, when it started, one of their demands was the welfare of the police, telling you everybody in Nigeria is under torture, telling you the nation and the government has failed everybody, including the security agencies. We have seen it. That's why I said Most of what you're seeing in Nigeria is a manifestation of the suffering, of the hunger and hardship in the system, including that of the security agencies. When a man has not eaten from morning and is carrying a rifle, he is always triggered and can be irrational in his behavior against human beings. So the whole idea is that things are not working because the indices are not doing well, and the government is reading out statistics that is more tormenting. You know what George Sylvester said? He said, when a nation's growth is on paper, but its people sinks in hunger, say that's not progress. That is polished poverty wearing a mask of statistics. So when people are suffering and the government of the day is using fake statistics to mask their suffering, it becomes more frustrating because they know there is no end in sight. Because when the government is making that mask, they're hiding under a mischief for the suffering to continue, not a sincere desire to bring about solutions. So Nigeria has become a theater where the government is not governing well and the people are not trusting the government. And that is what you're seeing in the protests. When the NSAS met with government agreed at the nation state to answer all their demands. But you could still see that lack of trust. They will still go and sit down and say, until we see it implemented. Because to them, once we leave this arena, it will be forgotten. And in all honesty, what they said was right. ASU went into agreement with federal government since 2009. Immediately they leave the table, the government forgets it. Till today, 2009 agreement is still being brought to the fore, and strike is being called because of it. So government must live up to the true meaning of its name, protecting the security and welfare of the people and ensuring under the concept of pacta sunt servanda that a party to an agreement must respect the terms of the agreement. If the government starts respecting the agreement it has with Nigerian people, starting from the social contract, this will build trust in the minds of the people, and continually that trust will build. And when the government makes a promise, the people will not sit down and say, you must fulfill it before we leave here. That is what is going on.